Today, what I have on the agenda, and I'm hoping you'll jump in if there's something else you want to cover. Okay, so here are the things that I have on the agenda today. Transcript production with print sets, including a style for print sets and creating a print set, exporting audio and or text for the scopist or typist, importing the text from a scopist or a typist, and voice strokes. So as far as voice strokes, creating the voice stroke file, creating the drag and entry and training it, use of voice strokes in DigiTran, and correcting with voice strokes. So that is what I have on the agenda today. So if there's anything else you want me to cover, let me know. Just so that you know, I've been, as we go along, at the end of every Saturday, I've gone into Word and I have made a list of what we've covered so that I can submit that to you all for your CE credits. And it is quite detailed. That way you also know what we covered. So this will go out to you each at the end of the day, so that you can submit it for credits through your state and national organizations. I have never had a state or national organization deny my credits, so you should have no trouble getting your credits. Okay, so I say we begin with voice strokes because I think that might be what you are all most interested in learning of the things we're talking about today. So this is not something we've covered already, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so voice strokes. First thing, why? Why use voice strokes? In DigiTran, you're only recording. You're not seeing text. So why does it matter to you to use a voice stroke when you aren't even going to see it happen? Well, you are going to see it happen. You're just going to see it happen when you go to the transcribe feature and drag and starts turning your voice into text. So it is still very appropriate for you to use a voice stroke rather than dictating everything that is being said. When do we use voice strokes? In my opinion, voice strokes are most powerful for court, because in court situation, you generally know what's going on and what's going to happen, whereas in a deposition situation, not always. And what I mean by that is, in a court situation, you are going to have situations where there's a jury charge, and the jury charge is standard. It comes right out of the bench book. Every state has a bench book. A bench book is an extremely powerful thing if you can get your little paws on it. If you are close to a judge, that's where you can get the bench book. I was able to get the military bench book, also known as the Uniform Code of Military Justice, when I was working with the military. And one of the things that we would do when we were creating their new user profile is run that through. And let me tell you, their accuracy went through the roof because, number one, bench books across the board, military, state, federal. What you'll notice about a bench book is that it's all very simple language. Very simple, clear, easily understood. And that's really the way most trials are supposed to go, is that everything is easily understood so that the person being tried has a fair and equitable chance at getting justice. So that's the whole reason that bench books are in simple language. And The reason that we run them through is so that Dragon can more easily predict what is going to come next when we feed those bench books through our Dragon. So if you can get a hold of your state bench book, or if you're a federal reporter, the federal bench book, especially if you can get it in a text format so that it doesn't have a lot of rich text format code, all the better. If you get a hold of the book, but you need help getting it converted to simple text, please let me know. I'd be happy to do that for you. Because if you get the bench book for your state, then it's actually going to be useful to every reporter in your state. So I don't mind doing the work to make it usable by everybody in your state. It's a really good thing. So another thing, one of the things that I've had a court reporter do in the past is she literally got a hold of the bench book and decided which segments, for lack of a better term, were important to her to be added as voice strokes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the File Explorer. And I'm going to go to my C drive. I'm going to double click on Program Data. Let me make sure you're seeing this. Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to double click on Audio Scribe. If you're a DigiTran reporter, you'll see DigiTran there, and then you'll look at Includes. If you're a SpeechCat reporter, you'll see Court Reporter and then Includes. And then if you have any voice strokes all start with the word auto, A-U-T-O. And then we name it generally by what it is. So this one is called Auto Burden of Proof. And here it is. The plaintiff has the burden of proof, which means that the plaintiff must prove whatever it takes to make her case, comma, except for an admission by the defendant, period. The plaintiff must prove her case by what is known as a preponderance of the evidence, semicolon. That is, comma, evidence upon the issues involved, comma, while not enough to wholly free the mind from a reasonable doubt, comma, is yet sufficient to incline a reasonable and impartial mind to one side of the issue rather than the other. New paragraph, tab, if you find that the evidence is evenly balanced on any issue in the case, comma, it would then be your duty to resolve that issue against the party having the burden of proving that issue, period. Auto burden of proof is a lot easier to say. So what this particular reporter did was her judge came to her and said, you've got 2 weeks to be real time.
Oh, God.
Now, she was already using SpeechCat. She was already a verbatim reporter. She already had pretty decent accuracy, but she was not satisfied that she was quote unquote real time. So she called me saying, I don't know what to do. I have 2 weeks to produce a real time feed. There's this big case coming up and the judge wants it. What do we do? I said, well, we'll work together every morning and I will give you an assignment and you will do it. And if you have any questions, you will email me or call me and I'll walk you through it. And then the next day I'll give you another assignment. And so for 2 weeks, she and I worked together. And because she had other things to do, I said, I'll create your voice strokes. You just send me the files, 1 file per voice stroke. And so she sent me all the files and I created all these voice strokes for her. Then I created a list of voice strokes and their voice codes, their voice markers, so that all she had to do was add it via a list and then train it. And boom, put the include files in the right place, and then they just come up automatically when she says them. This was a tremendous benefit to her. It was expensive. I think it cost her $1,500 to have me do all this every day for 2 weeks, but it was well worth it for her to be real-time ready. So if she had more time, she could have easily done it herself. It's not that difficult. But what I suggest you do is, let's say that you have a specific kind of trial coming up and you want to create voice strokes for this trial. Well, if it's a trial that has to do with personal injury, then you're going to want to look up all of the torts, all of the everything that has to do with personal injury, all the charges that you could possibly use for personal injury, and get them in there. So I would say pull up your last personal injury case and go to the places that are standard. Boom. Copy it out of your job and literally keep it open. You can keep it open and say, okay, so I'm going to copy this portion here, highlight it, right click, copy, and then I'm going to go. And this, by the way, is from SpeechCat or DigiTran. It works the same way. You go to View, Include Directory Setup, and then you click on New, and you type in what you're going to call it. So, auto personal injury 1. Create. Then you find it in this list. Auto personal injury 1. You click on open. And it's going to ask you, what style do you want to use this with? And the reason it asks you for the style is because you can actually pull in replacement fields into these voice strokes so that when you use the voice stroke, it automatically goes and pulls in something from your replacement fields in the job screen. So let's say that I'm going to select let's see, 32 LPP court with index. I'll select that one and I'll click on OK. So I'm going to just do Control V to paste. And let's say that here, instead of the plaintiff, I would want the plaintiff's name, say. If I could go to Insert Case Fields and then select Plaintiff, and you see here that there is an insertion field now. When you would bring this in via your spoken form, it would automatically replace the plaintiff field in your job screen if you filled it in. If you didn't fill it in, well, you can't replace it. But if you filled it in the job screen, it'll bring it in for you. And so that's another truly beneficial thing that you can do with voice strokes. And so I would simply then save it and exit. And then now I have only one thing else to do. I have to assign a spoken form to bring this in during dictation. So now I'm going to go exit out of Include Directory Setup. I'm going to just pop into Scratchpad because that's how I generally work with Dragon, is through AudioScribe's Scratchpad from within the program. That way I'm not popping in and out of the program. Another thing that you can keep in mind when you're thinking about voice strokes is the witness, bringing a witness onto the stand. I call that auto wit call. And the reason you should create a voice stroke for your witness calling is because you can actually have it insert the witness's name, center the witness's name. You can have the whereupon over here. You can have multiple lines. And so it's a very convenient way of making the witness identification nice and pretty come into your document without having to do any formatting. So that's something that people do a lot. So I'm going to go to my vocabulary editor and I'm going to click on add. And first I have to make sure that I know exactly the name of the file. And the name of the file was auto personal injury 1. So it has to be identical. Now, the name of the file also includes a .rtf. That's the file extension. That has to be in there. And then the whole file name has to be surrounded by asterisks. So I'm going to add an asterisk after and an asterisk before. And then over in the spoken form, I'm going to actually be really boring, and I'm going to call it auto personal injury 1. Because I don't want to have to remember anything that's complex. I just want to say it, because remember, I have all the time in the world, because the judge is still going to be reading while I'm saying auto personal injury 1. And then I get to breathe, right, while the judge is still talking. And that's a big benefit, breathing. And so we're going to click on add, and then very simply we train. You may have noticed that I trained it like 5 times. I find that it's important to train it several times because, believe it or not, we don't really say anything the same twice, or that's what they would have us believe. And so, because we are so inconsistent as humans, it's important to train it multiple times so that we actually have a better chance of dragging understanding what it is we said. So you can see that here is my auto personal injury 1, and there's its spoken form. So now I'm going to close and I'm going to test. Turn on my mic. Perfect. And so here in Scratchpad, it's going to come out in its written form. But if we go into scope or real time in SpeechCat, then it would come out the way it's supposed to look. Okay? So that is very simply how you create a voice stroke. It's not difficult. It's a matter of, number 1, finding what you want to make voice strokes from, and number 2, making copying and pasting that into an include file, and then number 3, actually creating a drag and entry where you have a written form and a spoken form, and then making sure that it works. I normally do test about 5 times, and as long as it's working 3 out of 5, I consider it a success. So I'm going to go ahead and test it a few more times. Bam. Okay. And generally, when you use multiple words like that, you're going to have success with them. What you are going to struggle with is having success with single syllable spoken forms. A single syllable spoken form is always going to be a little more of a challenge. Like a lot of people use keek and cack for Q&A. I find that keek and cack work really well, and most people have no problem with it. Those are just about the only single syllable markers that I've seen work. A lot of people use K-A, for comma. I think that's pretty smart too. And it does work for some people. For other people, it's just not enough. Trying to think of more single syllable things that people use.
Period, question mark.
For question mark, I say qui. And I find great success with qui. For period, I say Pirco. Some people say purd, P-U-R-D, purd. I don't find that is as consistent for me. If it's consistent, great, go for it. If it's not consistent, measure the consistency, your need for consistency against the time that it's going to take you to fix them all. If you dictate punctuation, you're doing a super terrific thing for your accuracy and for your transcript production. Because remember, every time you use a period or a qui, a period or a question mark, it's automatically putting in those two spaces and capping the next for you. That's strokes you're saving. So I say consistency is more important than brevity. But you're the reporter. So my opinion should be second to yours. My opinion is just that. Place it where it belongs, I also use, I'm going to go back to my vocabulary editor and show custom words. And I use semicolon. Do
you use SPE1 and SPE2 for your, like the court and the council and court?
Yes, I use SPE1, SPE2, SPE3, SPE4. I use all the SPEs for my speakers and all the trans for my untranslates. Simply because I can look at the list. In SpeechCat, we can see our speakers and our untrans. And so I can just look at the number and say, oh, okay, so I've got that speaker as speaker whatever, so I don't have to remember his number. I just have to look. It's a little bit harder in DigiTran where you don't always have that, but you do have that numeric keypad where you can put in speakers, and you do see that during your job. So you do have that, and you don't necessarily have to remember who's who. But I also like to stick to a form of regularity. For me, SPE1 is always the court. If I'm doing a demo and I'm showing only a depot job, then SPE1 is the taking attorney, SPE2 is the opposing attorney, and SPE3 is the witness. If I have additional counsel, they come after that. Whereas in a court situation, all of my people are already decided because they've been decided for 20 years, and I don't change that. So the judge is 1, the prosecutor or DA is 2, the defense attorney is 3, and for 4, I generally will use, if there is a second prosecutor, I put them in 4. If there's a second defense counsel, I put them in 5. Number 6 is always the witness for me. Number 7 is going to be if there's other people like a juvenile officer or a guardian ad litem or stuff like that. They're all going to be further down in the list. And then for me, the bailiff is always 9 and the court reporter is always 10. And so those things are not flexible for me. They are always the same. And it's with that regularity that I'm able to really remember things. If I'm always bouncing back and forth as to what speaker is what, then I have a hard time remembering, oh, who's what, and I don't need to make things any harder on myself. Already trying to do what you guys do for demonstrations is quite difficult enough for me. So I try to keep it very easy. Okay, so I was looking for my punctuation. I wanted to show you. Okay, I haven't got my basic punctuation in there, so I'm going to add them. I help people that are doing the eval do this every week. I don't use the existing punctuation. I create it. So I click on add, I hit period, and then I type in what I'm going to say, which is Peerco, E-E-R-C-O. I just spell it phonetically, P-E-E-R-C-O, Peerco. As long as you keep your spoken forms phonetic, you're going to be doing a good thing. I'm not going to train them right now because I'm going to train them all at one time. So I'm going to click on add. Okay. Now I'm going to type in question mark. Oops, it's not a question mark. Okay. And I call it Kwee, K-W-E-E is how I spell it. Click on add. Anytime you see this, the vocabulary does not contain the following word, that's a good sign. Click on OK. Add, I'm going to type in a semicolon, and I call that S-E-M-C-O, Semco. Add, okay. And then another one that I create is dash dash, which I call dub dash, D-U-B-D-A-S-H, dub dash. Okay. Now, I've entered my favorite punctuation. So now I need to go and assign that punctuation word properties, because if I use Peerco, Kwee, Simcoe, and dub dash the way they are now, the only thing that will be right, formatted correctly, is dub dash. I'll show you why. Okay, here's my dub dash. I'm going to highlight it and click on word properties. This is the only one where a space before and a space after and normal capitalization, which is the default, is correct, right? So I don't have to change anything. But if I go to my question mark, Kwee, and I go to properties, then I need to tell Dragon, do not put any spaces before this, because it has to attach to the word before it. And please add 2 spaces after, unless you're one of those people that's doing the newfangled 1 space after, then you would do it 1 space after. I'm of the old school. And then format the next word capitalized. So it's going to add our 2 spaces after, and it's going to capitalize the next word. And that is what we want. So we're going to click on OK. Now we're going to go to our period, which is Peerco. Highlight it. Properties. Again, no spaces before, 2 spaces after, and format the next word capitalized, and OK. Very simple to do. Let's do our Simcoe. This is a little different because we still want 0 spaces before, but with a semicolon, we only want 1 space after, right? And we do not automatically say capitalize the next, because the next is not capitalized normally. So we're going to leave that with normal capitalization. And OK. So basically, I added punctuation that's easy for me to say, that I can assure is going to have the right properties so that it won't look like there's a space before the period and not enough spaces after. So now all I need to do is go and select them all and train them. Mustn't forget to train them. So there's my dub dash. I've clicked on the first one. Now I'm going to hold down the control key so that I can click on more, but they're not in a row. So I've selected my Pirco, still holding down the control key, and I'm going to go to Simcoe and Qui. And I believe that was it. So now I'm going to go to train, and I'm going to train them all. Here we go. Okay, a little advice on spoken forms. When you're choosing a spoken form, whether you're choosing a 1-syllable or a 2-syllable spoken form or multiple syllables, try to remember that what seems to work with Dragon is when you have a hard vowel sound and a hard consonant sound together. Qui, that k, and then e, big thing. The dub dash and the Pirco and the Simcoe, not so much. The Pirco, that's the P, the hard P, and the O. That is what Dragon loves. The Simcoe works, I think, simply because it's 2 syllables and it doesn't sound like anything else. The dub dash works because, again, dub must not be a word, or it might be. Nope. See, the word dub alone is not even in the vocabulary, so that's what pays into helping dub dash work. Anytime you are assigning a spoken form, remember that if you're using a single word and it is already a word, you can't do that unless you're willing to delete that word. Now, if you marry that word to another sound like co or mac or dash or I had one Canadian reporter that would just add O to everything. So instead of saying the court, they would say the crown. So she, instead of calling it crown, would call it crowno. And that was her thing. And it worked consistently for her. She just added O to everything. So you don't have to follow what I suggest or what someone you know suggests. You can try something that's new, all your own. That's totally okay. Believe me, you're going to know if it works pretty quickly. I'm going to go ahead and try some of my punctuation now and see how it does. Do you like to go to the beach, please? Once upon a time, there was a queen who lived in a tree. She had so many plans, she did not know what to do. Sometimes, what would she do? Oh, well, on that day, Dash, I was alone, but the Dash. Okay. I don't know if that's actually a dub dash because it looks just like my dash. Dash, dash. Dash. Dub dash. Dash, dash. Okay, I don't think that my double dash is actually working. But it does look just like a double dash. But then that looks just like the dash, doesn't it? So it's very confusing. Maybe I'd have to be closer, but it doesn't look like a double dash. It looks just like a dash. So I might have to play with that one because it doesn't look different than the dash to me. But that is how I test, make sure that it's looking correctly. And remember that anytime you make any changes to your speech recognition engine, you have got to save your speech files. If you don't, then most likely it won't be there when you come back in. That's the one thing a lot of people forget. I've forgotten enough that I remember now because I've had to do things twice, which I hate to do.
I have a question.
Please.
Because I'm in DigiTran and not SpeechCat.
Right.
If during the course of a day I decide that I'm going to use a voice code but it's not in my dictionary, can I go back at the end of the day and add it to my dictionary?
Yes, you can. That is brilliant. And I'm so proud of you for putting that together. But that is correct. You absolutely can. Just remember to write it down.
Right.
Write whatever you said down so that you'll remember what you need to assign the spoken form. But you can absolutely do that. And that is something that I've seen people do in the past. And I think that's a great idea. So that is something that you can do. Okay, so now I am going to, are there any questions at all about voice strokes? Because they are really powerful. And I know that all three of you do some court work. Well, I know Kim and Teresa, that's what you guys do. But I know Mary, you do it sometimes. So this could benefit all of you. So I want to make sure you understand what we covered. Any questions at all about it?
And I love that we have access to these videos later if we need to go back and rewatch anything.
It really is very cool because we can't remember everything. And we shouldn't have to.
And my notes don't always make sense.
It doesn't. Well, you know, that's all of us. Our notes do not always make sense, especially when we have a short time to make them. Okay, so now let me make a note that we've talked about voice strokes. Okay, creating okay. All right, I do want to mention one thing. When you are doing correction mechanism with a voice stroke, remember that when you hear yourself say a voice stroke and you're in correction mechanism, if it doesn't show the asterisk auto personal injury 1.rtf asterisk, when you're in correction mechanism, it should show the exact words. If it doesn't show the exact words, then it didn't work. And if it didn't work, you need to put in the written form of the marker when you do correction, right? Not what the voice stroke brought in, but the written form, meaning the asterisk, capital A, little UTO, capital P, little personal, capital I, little injury. You know, it has to be exactly like that if it did not come out. So if you are correcting it, remember that it has to be corrected always to the written form. Okay, do y'all understand what that means? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So now let's talk about exporting a job for your typist or your scopist. Okay, first thing, if you own SpeechCat or DigiTran, you have 3 licenses of media controller or remote scopist. Any combination of the two, you have 3 of those once you own the product. While you're subscribing, you do not. But once you own the product, you have that. One of the things that we do now, because it used to be that we just give permanent codes for your media controller or remote scopist. We don't do that anymore because those people, if you stop using them, have permanent access to your software, and you can't give it to someone else if you've given someone a permanent code. So we don't give permanent codes anymore. We give temporary codes, even if it's a code that, even if this has been your scopist forever. So you say, well, I want to give her a year's code, so I only have to deal with this once a year. That's fine as well. But the reason we do that is for your benefit, because if we give anybody a permanent code and they go away, we cannot reissue a code for you, for anybody, because we didn't remove it from that computer. So by giving temporary codes, you don't ever find yourself in that situation. Anybody can buy the Remote Scopist program. It's $750. So unless you want to buy a new code for your Scopist at $750, use the temporary codes. You can make it as long as you want. I had one person send her temporary code, and she said, what do you mean I have to do this every month? And I said, no, you could buy it. You know, of course, they don't want to buy it. They don't want to spend their money. They like to spend your money. And so I have no problem being the heavy and saying, no, you can buy it. Otherwise, yes, you have to do this every month if that's what your reporter says you need to do. If you don't like it, go find something else to use. No big deal. Let us be the heavy. We have no problem doing it. Okay. Now, if you are using a scopist or a typist that uses media controller or remote scopist, you can export a job to send to them. So to export a job to send to them, you would literally just click on export and then export jobs. And from here, you simply find the job that you want to export. And up here, you assign it a name. And then you say, okay, well, I'm going to put that on my desktop so that I can attach it to an email when I'm done. That's fine. Click on OK. And if you want to include audio, make sure this box is checked. Okay. And then you just click on export. Operation complete. And there is your export right here. You see that?
Uh-huh.
And then you just attach that export to an email and send it. Or you can put it up on Dropbox and send them a link. Either way, they import it into their media controller. So if I go to media controller, which I don't think I've registered. Oh, maybe I have. And let's see, I'm going to delete this so that I can import it. Okay, so now I would do import and import jobs. And then I would click on browse to go to my desktop or Dropbox, wherever it is. I would see it and click on it. And then down below here, I can click on import. Import was successful. Close. And now that's what a person with media controller would do. I'm going to go ahead and delete this again so that I can show you from Scopist. All of our programs, you might notice, all look the same. You just have different icons depending on what program you're using. Still, I would go to import jobs. I would path to desktop, okay, select the job, click on import, yes, okay, close, and there's court day. There we go. And then they can go into it. They see your notes on the left. They have control of the audio. Notice that this is the first time I go into Scope on this. I got a new computer last week. And so you'll notice that when you first go into Scope, the volume is down. So you have to move the volume up. It didn't look like it had any text in there. Or audio. I'm not so sure that imported properly at all. If I go to show files, I can see, okay, so here I imported files that I must have already archived because it's telling me that they're on D, and the mirrored files, it says, are on C.
And mirrored file merely means that's something you've added up to Dropbox that is exactly the same.
Well, it's exactly the same. A mirrored file that you recorded is exactly the same as the original file. But remember, you wrote it to a different location.
Right.
So a mirrored file might be on the server or Dropbox or OneDrive, where the standard audio is on your computer's primary drive or secondary drive, which is a situation for some of the audio, and some of the audio has been archived because it's a new machine, so it's a little wonky for me. But yes, so that is how they get your audio, and I am going to show you how they then send it back to you. They then go to export, and they can do export job, or they can do export rough draft. I'm going to go ahead and do export job, but what I want you to notice is that I'm going to deselect include audio, because when they're sending it back to you, you don't need them to send you audio. You already have the audio. And once they export it without the audio, they can send this export via an email because there's no audio attached to it. It's just the text, right? The rich text format file. So I'm going to go ahead and call this sample RTF doc. And I'm going to just write it to my desktop so that I can then just attach it to an email, and I'll do export. And then if I go to DigiTran, I'm going to delete the one that I just exported so that I can import it. And I'm going to click on import job, and I can do import present file, or I can do import jobs. Normally I would do import present file, and then I would path to the desktop here. Can't see my, there we go. I'm doing that hot, cold thing again. I'm going to show you something before I do that. If I double click on this exported document that you get from your Scopist, and you just keep on double clicking, you're going to see the RTF file. So here's the RTF file here. So if you just want to bring in the rich text format file as the presented document, and a lot of Scopists, what they're going to do is they're not going to export the job to send it back to you. They're going to send you a Word document or a WordPerfect document. That's fine too. Let's say they went ahead and sent you that. I'm going to save this as whatever it's, let's see, let me make sure it's going to the desktop. I saved it, so now if I go back to DigiTran, and this is also true for SpeechCat, either way. So let's say I want to import that into this job, the finished text. I would do import presented file, path to my desktop. There it is. I click on it and open. And now that has been imported as the presented document, and I can now just highlight the job and go to present, choose to open it with the media controller or not, and click on OK. And there it is, same document, and now I'm in my word processor. So now I can go and look at it. I can listen to the audio if I need to. I can make changes. I can finish the document, save it, and I'm done. So that is how you can export things for your Scopist, as well as importing from the Scopist. Keep in mind that anytime you need to know what a file name is for one of your jobs, all you have to do is highlight the job, click on View and Show Files, and the name of all of your jobs are in the Show Files. Let me go to something that's been presented. There. So you can see the name of your files by expanding some of these. It'll even tell you the path where your file is saved. And anytime you want to see any one of those files, you can highlight it and click on Open RTF if it's an RTF file, or Open Sound File if it's a sound file, and it'll open it up right there so you can see or listen to it right there. So sound files is show files is a very, very powerful place. Okay. All right, print sets. Print sets are something that we created that allow you to circumvent word processors altogether. So you literally go from scope to a PDF document. No word processor at all. Some people love that idea. Some people not so much, because they like seeing things in the word processor and having that one last chance to make any changes. Understandable. A print set requires a few things. In order to make a print set, you have to already have a style. So the style gets made first, and then the print set gets made second. So normally when I create a print set for somebody, I go to Edit, Thank you, honey. And yes, if you would. Thank you. Edit styles. I generally will go and find the style that I have for that person. So let's say that I want to do a federal criminal print set. I see that I have a federal criminal style. So the first thing I do is I make a copy of this style. So I have it highlighted. I come up here and I say copy style. So now I'm going to look for copy of, there we go, copy of Fed criminal. So now I'm going to open that. And the first thing I'm going to do is remove the words copy of and add the words for print sets. And now I'm going to make sure that I have the style set up the way I want it set up. Make sure that my formatting is the way that I need it to be. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I'm going to go and make sure that I've got files that I can browse to. Federal criminal style. Okay, so this is a great example of what I deal with sometimes. In this situation, the federal criminal style has come across, but its cover pages did not. And so I have to go and look for them on my server. I was just talking to someone yesterday who is a transcriptionist and does work all over the US. And I was telling her to let me know if she needed a certain style from a certain state, because I have so many, and it would give her a place to start. Here's a federal cover. Let's see. Oh, I'm looking in styles, not covers. There we go. Oh, it looks like I only have, oh, there we go. Fed criminal and Fed certificate. I'm going to copy those and paste them to my local includes folder. And now I should have them here. Fed. Certificate open. Okay. Okay, so now here is where I'm going to select my print set once it's created. So now I'm going to go apply and okay. So now I have a style that I'm going to use with my print set. So I'm going to close the Manage Styles box. I'm going to go to Edit and Edit Print Sets. So now I want to make a federal criminal print set. So I'm going to click on New. I'm going to type in federal criminal print set. And it's already got the style that I want here. And here's where we begin. So the first thing, the General tab, first thing we do is we go ahead and put in our margins. So normally if I'm using a legal page, the very first thing you need to do is put in the size of the page, which is 14 height, 8.5, 8.5 width. And then left is usually going to be 1 inch. Right is normally going to be 1 inch. Bottom is going to be 1 inch. And top is going to be 1.5 or more, depending upon how much room you like to leave for your top binding. And if you're top binding, this is what you need to do. If you're left binding, then your left margin is going to be larger, obviously. So once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and click on Page Numbering tab. Now here we need to create first. So I'm going to add, and let's say that I want my page numbers bottom center. So I'm going to do Edit, and I like to call it where I want to put it. So I call it bottom center. And I want the first number to be on page 2. Or I could say 1. You can say wherever you want your first page to be. Your last page, if you want to use the same page numbering throughout, you would just say use till end of document. And then your appearance can be regular numbers, lowercase Romans, or uppercase Romans. I'm going to use regular numbers. And then from the top, if I'm using a 14-inch page, I want my page number to be about 13.2 because I want it to be in my footer, basically.
Repeat that one more time. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do it as you do, and I'm trying to do it the same. So if you're doing it from the top, I want it at the top right, not at the bottom. So what are you saying that you count to be able to figure out where you want it?
Okay, so if you're doing it, you're doing top right. Let's say that, are you using a legal page?
No.
Okay, just a letter page.
Yes.
So, your top margin may be 1 inch. So, if your top margin is 1 inch and you want to put your numbers top right, then in top, I would do 0.8. Like this, just 0.8.
Because you want it just right above the inch is what you're saying.
You want it right above where your testimony is going to start, right? And then from the left, if it's going to be on the right and it's an 8.5-inch page, then I would normally say that I want it 8 inches from the left. Because I want it, my margin's probably going to be 0.5 on the right. You could also do, to be safe, 7.8. Because if you're going to have like eventually 3 numbers, you're going to want to leave space for that, right? If you have hundreds of pages in your volume. So, and remember that I generally play with this. I'm going to come back and forth and see what it looks like. And if I don't like it, I'm going to change it and mess with it until it's right. My format, I leave blank if I want it to be regular numbers. If you want it to have the word page in it, for instance, you see down here, optionally, you may use the page and total in the format field, meaning you would do like this, open curly braces, page of total, right? So that would be your page number of so many pages. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm having internet connection issues this morning, so it blacked out on me. But I think I follow what you put up there so far. So we're good to go. If I have questions later, I'll email you.
Yes, stop me. You can always stop me if it goes out. No worries. Okay, everybody here is so sweet.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have any unsweet people here, so it's all good.
Okay, good.
Now, the start number. Let's say that my first page was going to be 2. Well, my start number would need to be 2 as well. Because if I was going to start on page 2, that doesn't make it page 1, right? Even though we don't put sometimes a page number on the first page, we still start with the right page number. For the most part in my career, I've noticed either there's a page number on page 1, which is sort of more the rare. Mostly page numbers start on page 2. And so it starts with page 2. I think we currently have a bug in print sets because I don't think it's easy to make it start on 2 at page 2. So I'm going to leave it like this so that I can specifically see if it's working. Okay, so what you want is to remember that when you're talking about the left field, it's saying from left, where do you want this page number to show up? So for Teresa, she's going to want it about 7.8. Because I want it in the center, I want it about 3.5 because that's about the center of the page. And so that's where I want it to show up. Now, if I want it to be like this, page of total, then it would be much longer. So I might start it then at 3. But if I'm just going to do the page number, then I would do 3.5 because that's about the middle. So I would click on OK there. Now, I'm going to go to line numbers. Now, keep in mind that we have to know where our margins are. In this instance, my left margin is at 1. Why does that matter? Because my page numbers need to go before that. I'm sorry, my line numbers need to go before that. So let's go to line numbers. I'm going to click on add and then edit. And let's say that these line numbers are going to be for my 32 line page. And because my margin is 1, it has to be from the left about 0.7 or 0.8. I may want the line numbers to start on page 1, or I may want it to start on page 3, because my first page is my caption page, my second page is my appearance page, and my third page is actually my first page of proceedings. And I do not want my line numbers to go till the end of the document, because I don't want it on my certificate page. I don't want it on my, say, witness certificate. I don't think you guys in court, you guys only really do 1 page. So I'm going to say count from the end of the document. So the 1 page at the end, that's my cert, and I don't want it on my cert. So I'm going to say count from 1 page from the end and stop it. Make sense? I know that's a little odd.
It makes sense, but mine has to be included with the line numbers. So then I can do it all the way to the end of the document and it'll count 20. No matter how many, let me make sure I ask this right. No matter how many lines is on that last page, is it automatically going to give me the 25 lines if I tell it to do it to the end of the document? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I believe it does in this. We'll see in a minute. I believe it does. Now, I just want to point out that should you ever need timestamps in a document, this is one heck of an easy way to do it, is with print sets. When you do, if you ever do, need timestamps as well in the document, remember that a timestamp takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 spaces. That's how much room a timestamp takes. Now remember, we do need a space between our timestamp and our line numbers. We don't want them smashed together, right? So remember that if you are going to use timestamps, not only do you need the 8 spaces that timestamp's going to require, but you need at least 1 space after it. So automatically, you need 9 additional spaces for that timestamp. So I'm going to call this right here line numbers. And I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to add another option that, let's say that I wanted this option to be timestamps only. And let's say that I wanted it to start only on the proceedings, which would be 3. And I don't want it on the end, so I'm going to leave that 1 there. And on the left, my margin in this situation starts at 1. This would be the reason I would have to change that margin, because I do not have enough space at all with a 1-inch margin to do a timestamp and a line number. Not happening. So at that point, I would say, okay, I need to rethink this, and I would go back to general. And I would say, well, okay, maybe it's time to change some things. I'm going to go to letter, and I'm going to change this to 1.3 for the top margin, 1.3 for the bottom, because I find that gives me an exactly perfect 25 lines per page. And on the left, I'm going to go ahead and change this up, and I'm going to make this 2 on the left. And on the right, I'm going to go down to 0.5. And this is going to give me way more room on the left, which I am going to need to do both a timestamp and a line number. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go back to page numbers here, and I'm going to go to edit and see if this is still applicable. I no longer want to go 13 inches. Let's say that instead of bottom center, I'm going to go with top right. So I'm going to say that I want this to start on page 2. From the top, I only want it 1 inch. And from the left, I want it 7.8. I do want it to start with number 2. I want the font to be a 12. Okay. Now, instead of using just this line numbers, I'm going to delete that one. And I'm going to say that this one is both line numbers and timestamps. And I want this to start on page 3. And I want the last page to be my last page of testimony. And from the left, remember my margin is 2. I need to work within that 2 inches. So I need 9 spaces just for my timestamp and a space after. And then I need 2 spaces for line numbering. So I'm looking at 19 spaces. Okay. So we know that 1 inch is 10 spaces. And so 9 spaces would be 1.9. So we would literally be starting here from 1 at left, because that's the only available number. We only have 1 space left if our margin is 2. So it would start very much on the edge. And the timestamp offset,
So
I'm not,
Ava, could I stop just for a second? Let's say hypothetically, my my margin is 1.75, and I want to put the number there. You said 1 inch equals 10 spaces. So if I want it like at 1.5, then I would put 15 spaces there.
1.5 would give you 15 spaces, right? But 15 spaces, it's not enough for a timestamp.
Well, I mean, just for the line number in general.
Oh, yes. Let's say you weren't going to do timestamps. You were only doing line numbers. And if you have 15 spaces in a 1.5 inch margin, which is what you have, and you only need 2 spaces for your line, your line numbering, then you would go to 1.3 or 1.4 from the left.
Okay.
Because what you want is to give yourself enough space for whatever you want to be there. Does that make sense? So if you want the timestamp, understanding that a timestamp takes 8 spaces, period. Plus I'm guessing that timestamp offset has got to be the space between the timestamp and the line numbers. And so for this situation, I'm going to try the 1 to let's see how that looks. And I'm going to click on OK. And then we're going to go to borders. We're going to click on add, and we're going to go to edit. Now, here, let's say that what we want is a federal box. A federal box is a complete box. Top, left, right, and bottom. So if I have, let's use Teresa's example. Teresa has a left margin of 1.5. What's your right margin, Teresa?
So my left margin is 1.75.
Oh, 1.75. Okay.
Yes, my right margin is 0.375.
Okay. So, thank you. What we would do is we would say our whole page is 8.5. We need to subtract 1.75 and 1.375. No, just 0.375. We would subtract those things from 8.5. So let's see. I'm going to bring up my calculator. And I'm going to say 8.5 minus 1.75 minus 0.375 equals. And that is how much space you have left. Does that seem right? It doesn't.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
This is supposed to be, once we subtract 8.5, we subtract 0.375 and 1.75 from 8.5. And that is the space we have left for that line. So our lines left would be 6. Let's see, wait. Yeah. The size of the line. Let's see, top single line. Let's say we want a single line everywhere. And from the top, we would start if you're, what's your top margin, Teresa?
I think it's 1. My top margin is 1 inch.
Okay, so we'd say we have a 1 inch from the top and then 6.375. Oh, okay, that's from the left. So from the left, we would start at 1.75 because that's your margin, and the width would be 6.375, and the height would be top margin. So the whole page is 11 inches long. We would subtract your top margin 1 and your bottom margin, which is what, Teresa?
You would subtract my bottom margin. Oh gosh, let me look. See, they didn't have specifications for that, so I had to just make sure I had 25 lines on the page. So let me
Right.
check.
While you're looking for that, y'all excuse me for a real quick minute.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so what did you come up with, Teresa?
So the way I have it set up, my top margin is 0.92. My bottom margin is also 0.92.
Okay, so we do 11. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
No, I'm sorry. I was talking to my computer, which would not
Oh,
write 11. 11 minus 0.92 equals minus 0.92 equals. So the height of our box would be 9.16. So the top tells us how far from the top do we start. And because Teresa's margin is 0.92, we have to be less than the margin, right? Because we want the box around the margins, not within the margins. So if her margin is 0.92, I would have to play with it, but I'm going to start off with, let's do 0.8 to start with and see how that works. So I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to go back to my general, and I'm going to change my margins again. 0.92, 0.92, and left is 1.75, and right is 0.375, and I'm still at an 8.5 by 11. So let me make sure that my Teresa, do your numbers start on the first page or the second?
the second.
Okay. So from the top, we're going to need to change that, because if the top margin is 0.92, 0.92, and it needs to be less than that. And it depends on if it's going to be outside of our box or inside of our box. I'm going to set the number at 0.7 or 0.65 maybe. Let me try 0.65. And left, I think 7.8 is still a good call maybe. We're going to start the number at 2, Courier New 12, okay. Let's go back to line numbers. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to go back to just line numbers instead of timestamps and line numbers. And because she's only using line numbers, then, and her left margin is 1.75, I would probably do 1.7 because I want them pretty close, to that line. And
Right.
I'm definitely going to start that on the third page and go until, because I don't want that on my cert. Okay. So I don't need a timestamp offset because I'm not using timestamps, and I'm going to click on OK there. And my borders, I'm going to go back and check again, make sure that I'm in line with. So my federal box starts at, no, we need it to be like 173 because we don't want the box to be lined up with the text. We want it to be before the text. And from the top, we want it to start, if it's 1.73, okay, 0.92, so maybe 0.75. From the top, yeah, okay. So I click on OK, and okay, let's go to blocks. We have to add, and we'll click on edit. Now, this is your chance to put headers and footers in your document. This comes in super handy when you have a situation where you want to put a witness name in the header. You can do that. This is also where we create our footer, the custom footer on the first page. So the first thing we might want to do is say first page footer. And on the first page, and we want it to be only on the first page. So it's going to be the first page is 1 and the last page is 1 because we only want this one on the first page. And we want this to say start from 9 inches from the top and let's say 3 inches from the left. We don't want to have a border around it at all. Otherwise, we would specify the border here. We want the text to be centered, and we want it to be the vertical alignment to be centered. And let's say that we want this to be something different from Courier New.
So what with the text block, because that like where they do the signature, like if you were freelance or something and you put your address and stuff down at the bottom of maybe the title page or okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So you can even make it so that you have replacement fields and you put the reporter name, then reporter certification, and then maybe the reporter's number, and then the reporter's address, line 1, address line 2, and city, state, and zip. And you want it to be maybe 4 inches wide, and you want it to be maybe 1.5 inches tall. And so you say, okay. You can even say, put it in italics, and okay. And there's your footer for the first page. You may want a different footer on subsequent pages. So you would add another footer. And you would click on edit. And let's say that this is going to be the footer on your proceedings. And you want this to be also, now this is going to be under the text, right? And it has to be within the margin that you allow. So if your margin is 0.92, then it can only be within that 0.92. So it can only be maybe 0.5 in height, because it has to fit within that 0.92. You can still make it 4 inches wide or bigger. You still want to maybe start it at 3 inches from the left, and you want to do 10 inches from the top, because it's a footer, remember? And it might just simply say federal court, you know, whatever. And it might be the date. You could put in the date. And you would want to center align it, top and horizontal and vertical. And you could make it Courier 12, or you could change that. You could also include a border if you wanted to put a box around it. And let's say that this begins on page 3 and counts from 1 page from the end. So you want to count the last page from the end. That way this will show up only on your proceedings page. And then you click OK. And you might even want to do a footer for your certificate page. You can certainly do that. You can create a header for certain pages to put the witness name in the header. You can definitely do that as well. Images is about inserting actual images, like scales of justice or something. If you want that to be somewhere in your footer or in your header or whatever, you can actually do that as well, or put a logo. Mostly deposition reporters use that. So now we're done. So we're going to say, okay. So what we do to test our print sets is that we create a new job, and in the style, we select the style that goes with the print sets. Oh, let me cancel, because I forgot to do that. I have to go to the style, edit style, and I have to find that federal style.
Oh, because now your style has changed.
Right. So you have to.
Oh, I wasn't still on mute. Sorry.
What?
I thought I was still on mute.
No, it's fine. You're absolutely right. The style has changed. I really thought that I created a federal style, that I made a copy of this, but I will make another copy since I can't find it. So I'll just make a copy, and I'll do copy of federal, open, and federal criminal. Okay, so on the Layouts and Includes tab is where I go and select my federal criminal print set. When you have this selected, it automatically sees that and says, okay, so we're using print sets and not a word processor. So at that point, it doesn't really matter if it says Word or WordPerfect because it's not going to be using either one of those. So when I go to create my new job, I select the style for print sets. So I could have sworn I created one that said Federal for print sets. Oh my goodness. It's not saving. There's my federal criminal for print sets. Okay. All right, so new job. Okay, so I'm gonna pop into scope and I'm just going to copy and paste some text there. What's wrong? Stop crying. It's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go reformat, fix corrected markers to make it look pretty. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. It's all right. Come say hi to the ladies. Look at what a handsome boy he is. Say hello. Say hello. Say hello. I'm mommy's baby. Yes, I am. And I'm being impatient. Yes. Last week I had a customer that had me create a new style for her. And she had come over last Saturday and we worked together and got the style just the way she wanted it. And she went and took a job the next Monday and she used that style, and we realized that the formatting of the Q&A and the speakers was incorrect. And she was like, oh, Adria, the style is not right, and now I have to redo this. I said, no. You're not going to redictate it. Send me the file, and I'll make it right. So what I was able to do was find out how many speakers she had, assign them each a number, and then change them into so that it looked like this, so that it was asterisk A asterisk, asterisk Q asterisk, and all that. And then I was able to fix the style and then paste this in there and use reformat fix corrected markers to make the right format appear. So just wanted to let you guys know that there's always an easier way to get around something. And if ever you have an issue, like you've used the wrong style and it's in the wrong format, don't ever cause yourself a ton of grief. If you think that there's any way that I can help you, then email me and say, Adria, I used the wrong style and it's in the wrong format. Can you make it drag and raw text again? And that's what I would do for you. I would do the exact same thing. And so just know that there's always an easier way to go about things than sometimes doing it the hard way. So if ever something crazy happens, ask before you redo.
I know I might be asking just a question. I've had to do that before, Adria. And is there, like in SpeechCat, it automatically, when you say your speakers, it capitalizes that next word behind the Q. But when you do it in drag and raw text, it doesn't. Is there a way to be able to SpeechCat correct that and capitalize it, even though you're not dictating it at the time? Like if you say QMAC normally, or whatever, whoever says, it will capitalize the next letter. But if you do it in raw format from Dragon, and Dragon has the asterisk Q asterisk already, and then you tell it to change your format your markers, it doesn't capitalize it or put the period or the question mark behind. Is there a way to do that?
Oh, if you do that in Dragon by itself?
And then transport it, like I had to do that in Dragon because something happened, and then transported it over to, copied and pasted into SpeechCat so that it could fix the markers for me.
Yes.
But it didn't. Yeah. So is there a way to let it do that or no?
Oh, it didn't add the ending punctuation. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. Or capitalize the first letter behind the Q's and A's whenever it changed your when it changes it for you.
Really? It did here. Baby, I hear you. I do. But you're not getting the cookie. Stop it.
It doesn't. Like if it misdictated and then I corrected it and then I tell it to change the format, it doesn't capitalize the word behind the first word.
Okay, well then that is a bug. So it's not capitalizing. First letter after Q and A. Does it do the same with speakers?
Yes.
Okay. Or speakers. And it does not add punctuation. I have a suspicion here, Teresa. Let's go to, we're going to exit out of here and we're going to go to options. I'm not sure if it's in options. It may be in the style. It must be in the style. So let me, okay. So let's go to edit styles. I'm going to go to my federal that I just have been working with. Federal criminal for print sets. Oh no, I did federal for print sets. I'm going to open it. Okay, markers add punctuation is checked. Okay. This is what should do that, Teresa.
Okay.
If you go, please go check your style and see if markers add punctuation is checked for me. Mine is checked and it's still not working. So that's a bug. But I'm just verifying that it's the same for you.
Yeah, mine is checked. And it works properly when I'm dictating, but just this instance, it doesn't.
Just so that you know, right now it's super, super important that anytime you see anything wrong in your product, that you please let me know, because we're wrapping up SpeechCat. SpeechCat 10, we're wrapping it up, which means that it's going to be the way it is. SpeechCat 10, it'll be, programming will be stopped on SpeechCat 10 by spring of next year, because we'll have SpeechCat 11. So it's super, super important that anytime you see an anomaly in SpeechCat 10, please drop me an email, or call me, or text me, because I want every bug in SpeechCat 10 to be fixed before we move to 11. Makes sense? So I really need to know, even if it's just something that you work around, please let me know, because my wish is to make sure that it is correct and perfect before we move on to SpeechCat 11. So I will definitely add this to the bug list and get this fixed for you guys, and I'll let you know when it's fixed and get you the update. Okay, so now I'm going to return to Scope, and what I'm doing now is I'm just going to go ahead and bring in the cover pages, even though I didn't fill them in. I didn't fill any replacement fields in. So I'm going to go in Job, Finalize, OK. Okay, doesn't have the cover pages, so I need to go back to the style. As you can see, when your style is not perfect, it causes such grief. Okay, so now I'm just going to do Control-A and change font because it doesn't all look the same size. So I'm going to make it all the same size. And I'm going to just pretend like I'm done. And I'm going to go to, okay, there's one other thing that's required for print sets. So I'm going to go and do this now, and you can do it with me if you'd like. Bring up a web browser and type in Bullzip, Bullzip, install. And you should get download from bullzip.com. I'm going to click on that, and you should see PDF printer right up at the top. Just click on download. Click on download again. Click here to download and run. What this does is it installs a free PDF application on your computer. It does not interfere if you already have another PDF software. Like I have Adobe Creator DC. So I have not only Adobe Reader, but I have the Adobe Creator software because, of course, I have to use it to create all my PDFs for you guys. And I also have to be able to turn your PDF documents into Word or WordPerfect documents in order to create your styles. So I always have to have Bullzip, always have to have Adobe Creator. But Bullzip is free and costs nothing, and you have to have it in order to use the print sets. So now that I've got that installed, I'm going to go back to my DigiTran. I'm going to go back to, well, I don't even have to go to Scope. I can just hit Present. And you see it saying preparing for present, please wait. And then it's counting the pages and boom, boom, boom. Okay. Ta-da! Now, remember that we just created this. This is our first test, so it may not be right. The first thing I notice is that my federal box is only on the first page. So when I'm looking at everything and examining whether or not it is correct, the first thing I do is make notes. So box on first page only. That's my first problem. And then my second problem is that if you'll notice that my box is not quite wide enough, because you see how it's interfering with this text right here. I don't want that. So I'm going to make my box just slightly larger. So I'm going to make a note. Make box larger by 1 point. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down slowly and see. Looks like not everything that was on my first page fit on my first page. And then here's my second page, and I see that my page numbering has started, but because my box isn't there, I can't tell if it's in the right place. So we'll see about that. It looks like my page breaks are not, like I have section breaks, but not page breaks. And when you're using print sets, you have to use page breaks, not section breaks. We only use section breaks with Word. So I need to remove section breaks, replace with page breaks. So far I have 3 things that are wrong. Now look down here, federal court. So that's my footer. Ah, that's what all this is. This is the footer I entered. That is taking more space than I wanted it to take. So this is what rolled down the rest of my text. So that's good information. My footer, so this is item number 4, my page 1 footer is too large. Okay.
I've got to scoot, but I will come back and finish watching this when I can get back here.
That sounds great. And we'll talk more next week about, or I'll send you guys a little text about, or an email about continuing the classes and all that, and we'll talk some more about it.
Okay, are you available on Monday or are you off on Monday?
No, is Monday?
It's a Veterans Day. Our courts just happen to be down and I'm home.
Okay, yes, we are still, we are working. We normally
Okay.
observe Veterans Day, but none of us are veterans, so not a big deal. I think
Okay.
we are planning to work on Monday, but even if, well, yeah, we didn't talk about it, so we're going to be here on Monday. So just give me a buzz.
Okay, I will. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, sweetie. Have a great day. Okay, so all of this is going to be the same. Oh, wait a minute. I have no timestamps at all. None. I mean, no line numbers at all. Okay, so that didn't work. Okay, so this is how I go back and forth until I figure it all out. I go back to my print set, federal for print sets. Okay, so we need to now, first I want to figure out why my line numbers didn't come out. Okay, so let me see. Maybe 1.7 did not give them enough room since we started at 1.75. So I'm going to change the 1.7 to 1.65. Okay, now I need to go and make sure that my border, see what's wrong with my border. First page 1, last page 1. I need to use it till the end of the document. So that was a problem there. And also we noticed that our box was not quite wide enough by just a little bit. So I'm going to do 1.38 as the width and see if that fixes it. Okay. So I fixed it being on one page only. I made the box larger by a few points. Okay, section breaks. So I need to go to my style, Federal for print sets, in order to fix that. Oh, page 1 footer. Okay, so let me go to the text blocks, first page footer, edit, and this is all too large. So I'm going to make this a size 10 and maybe take some of the information out. Maybe just do, okay, so 1.5 should be wide enough. We only want that on the first page. So, okay. The proceedings footer worked well. Of course, we had no date, so I'm going to just put in a date. Like that. And I'm going to make that 10 points as well. Okay, okay, okay. So, I need to go back to the style and go to Federal Criminal for print sets. Open. And I need to go to my cover pages. So, open this. Every place I have a section break. There we go. Looks like I'm just going to take out the word section and put in the word page. I'm going to copy and paste. Control C. Okay. Because we actually need one of these at the end of every page. I'm going to make sure that. Now what I'm noticing is that I've still got, this is for some reason still set to, okay, now it's a letter size. All right, so now let me make sure that my print sets are also set to 25 lines. Yeah, okay. So that is right. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to make sure that I hide my present document. So I'm going to go to View and Show Files, go down to my presented documents, highlight it, and say Hide Present File. Yes. That way it thinks that I haven't gone to present yet. I'm going to go back to Scope because I want to reinsert my cover pages. So I'm going to go and highlight everything that starts there. Control Shift Home, delete, and then I'm going to go to Control End at the bottom of the document and highlight that and delete. Control Home, go to the top, and now Job and finalize again. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to go Job and Present and see if I did better this time. Okay. it looks like I'm not exceeding the page. Looks like the footer is a little bit more under control there. Okay. So it looks like I'm still exceeding the space in my box, and my page number is not high enough. My page number needs to be above the box so that it's not being cut in half by the box. So I need to make a note to bring page number up. And my box seems like it is too big. So my box should be on the right side of my line numbers, not on the left. And I have 27 lines per page. So I need to affect my top and bottom margins to reduce that. My footer looks great. I'm going to go to the end, make sure that, okay, I must not have added a page break instead of a section break on my certificate page because it did not go to the new page. Okay, so I've still got some things to change. So this is literally what I do. I just go back and forth until I finally get it right. And there's no other way to do it but to keep adjusting things like this. So I'm going to go to my borders first, my federal box, and I'm going to edit that. And over at the left, my box is starting at 173. It needs to be pushed further. So, oh gosh,
I'm gonna have to cut out too, guys. I'll finish watching it on the video.
No problem.
I'll be
You have a
calling you
great
soon.
afternoon.
I almost have my new computer set up all the way, so I'll be calling you soon to work with you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Have a great day, Mary.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Teresa, do you want to keep going with this?
Well, I probably do. I know that it's been going for a long time, longer than you had intended. But I mean, I want to see that. And there's one other thing I wanted to just put in the wish list since you said that about the speech cat.
Yes.
Let me just say this real quick. Then you can go to that if you'd like to. It would. I'm probably one of the few who use the untrans very regularly.
No, everybody does untrans regularly.
Okay, I was like, yeah, because I probably have like a lot of untrans. But one of the things that you can't do in the untrans is like use quotations. So for if someone is saying like the Ponzi scheme or the Ponzi, and I want to put quotations around Ponzi and then put it in my untrans, you can't put quotations in the untrans.
Oh, really? They don't come out?
No, as soon as you put it in there and then you go like to and you enter on the word, they automatically disappear.
Wow.
So like if they're using someone's name and it's a code name and they keep saying he was called, like last week I had a case and they called her Water, and I wanted to put water in quotations because they kept saying it. It won't let me do that. I could only put the word water.
Interesting. Well, I did not know that. So that's a bug. We will fix that for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so you're up for continuing with me?
Yes, I'll continue.
We don't have to.
Well, I think you almost got it. So it's just exciting to see, like, you don't want to stop right when you got it.
I agree. Okay, so I'm going to try 1 point. I'm going to just put 1.75 because it's really over a lot. Okay, and then I'll go to the line numbers themselves. And they are at 165, so they need to be more over to the right. So maybe 171. Try that. And I need to go back to the style. Let's see. I'm going to go back in here. Oh, I have to go and hide the other present file. So show files. Go to the one that does not say hidden. It says hidden no. And hide the present file. So yes, hide it. Close out. I need to go into scope and make a change to the certificate. I should say page. Okay. Now I can save and job present. Let's see. Okay, so I went a little bit too much over on my box. Oh, and I forgot to bring up the page number. It certainly doesn't look like I've mastered it yet. Wow. It blanked out my print set. Okay. All right, so margin. I've got to go bigger. To make it only 25. The page numbers need to be higher on the page. So instead of at 0.65, I need it maybe at 0.6 or 0.59. We'll do that. I like the location of it from the left. Okay, line numbers. Let's see. Okay, so 171 really should work, but it's not far enough. So 16 for now. Orders, federal box. Okay, so the box needs to be 175. It has to be at 174 or 173. And the width needs to be a little wider. So 6.4. And the height, let's see. Back to the calculator. If we have an 11-point page and minus 1.3 equals minus 1.3. So it's going to be 8.4 tall. And if we have an 8.5 width, we subtract 1.75 and 0.375. 6375. Okay. Let's see if we made any progress then. So view, show files, hide the present file, yes. Okay. And present. So literally it's a playing game until you get what you want. Now it's not long enough. And the section break is back. I think I've got problems. Oh yeah, it's much too small. The box is much too small. It's still over too much to the left. So this can literally go on for hours, but this is what I do. I keep messing with it until I get it right. The nice thing is once you get it right, it's right forever. And you don't ever have to mess with it again. And you never have to mess with the word processor again, which I love. So I'm going to continue to work with this next week until I get it right. And once I get it right, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But I think we've got some problems with print sets because they seem to be changing on their own, some things. So I also have some bugs to work out with my programmer, but that's how we use print sets. So you said there was something else you wanted to ask.
Well, I saw it just now also on that, but I don't know that it's something you can do. Like on your print set just now, it had the word Mr. at the end that wasn't connected to the word itself, like Mr. Jones. It separates the Mr. and the Jones. There's not a setting that you have where it would keep those titles connected.
No, but I can ask that we add that. Add. It's actually a non-breakable space is what we need. That might be something that I can do in Dragon, actually.
Dragon does have the unbreakable and non-breakable space.
Yeah.
I've just been able to figure out how to make it work in SpeechCat.
Yeah, I honestly delete those because of the problems that they can cause. So normally word processors use widow orphan control, but that causes all sorts of problems too. Because widow orphan control, if it's on, can force one page to be 23 lines because it doesn't want to break a whole question up. You know?
Right.
The military actually still uses that. They use widow orphan control because they don't want a question to be broken up or an answer. But, you know, court reporters in the military don't get paid by the page, so they don't care. You know, whereas civilians do, so it matters.
Right. See, in WordPerfect, I had to do a macro so it would find them all and then put the breakable space in there. But I just wondered if there was something in SpeechCat that I wouldn't have to do that. And so I can do that once I present, to WordPerfect and fix all of that. But if I use the print set, then I'm not able to fix that without going through and finding every one.
Right. So I can ask if we can add a feature like that to make sure that the Mr., Ms., or Mrs. don't ever separate from the words that follow them.
And Dr. DR, the doctor.
Because I mean, it's a pretty steadfast rule if we just put it in place so that it's always there. It's not like there's exceptions to that rule, so that should be easy to do.
Okay. Well, I think that pretty much settles it. Once we get the print set situated, then I can figure out how to do the headers, indexes, exhibit pages. I know that there's another. That's probably a whole nother session, but
Yeah.
that would be something that, I mean, if it's possible that I could use SpeechCat from A to Z and spit it out, that would be great.
Yes. And our indexing feature is great, and it's easy to use. So indexing is something that I'd love to cover. I'll keep you in mind too. I'll send you the email that I do about continuing classes. Should you want to join, what I might do is just start picking random features and putting it on Facebook and saying, okay, so this weekend, this is what we're going to cover. That way, if people want to learn about that specific feature, they can join that Saturday class.
Right. Okay. That sounds good, because I know that it's a lot of detail in specific ones, and so it's not like necessarily, I know that some things would be more pertinent to SpeechCat than DigiTran or vice versa. So that would
There
be
are some
great.
things that'll be more like for one or the other, but for the most part, they all use the same features. The only thing DigiTran doesn't have is real time.
Right, which is why I was a little trying to wonder when you were talking about the voice briefs, them using that in DigiTran only. Like if they use that, if they put the voice brief in DigiTran, it's going to pop up all of the words in under their notes. Or
No.
okay.
No. People that use DigiTran, if they use Dragon as well, after a job, they actually click on the feather, which is transcribe. And it opens up scope. They click on their user profile to open it. And then it takes their voice track and transcribes it into text. And that's when they see their voice briefs and voice strokes.
Okay.
So it's a matter of using it on faith that when it translates, it's going to be there. Because you don't know until it translates.
Right. Right.
But a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable with doing that than doing real time because they don't want to risk people seeing their text if it's not accurate enough to be seen. And I
Right.
understand that,
Right.
So
I
real time's
understand.
not for everybody.
I understand, because listen, I apparently I told you they stare at my screen all day, every day when I'm in court. There's 3 of them, and they're looking at the screen, taking notes. And I've had the judge after a hearing asked me, well, on the screen it said so and so, but he didn't say that. He said, so and so, was that you that didn't dictate it correctly, or did the machine just not understand you correctly? And it was something that was so simple, and I'm like, why are you staring at the screen? Stop staring at the screen! Oh my gosh! And of course, I wanted to go and cry, because I'm like, they're micromanaging everything I do. So if voice briefs are good in some ways for me, but in other ways, not so much, because they're reading word for word on the screen. And if they say something different than what pops up, then I get questions. So I get it if I was doing it for myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely would be great.
It's, a lot of people are not as brave as you. They would not take that well at all. Because a lot of people are like, no way, to the point that they even get the what do you call it? Those screen, how 3M makes those screen things that you have to be sitting right in front of the computer. to see it.
Yeah,
Like if you're even sitting on the side, you can't see it. The privacy screens, I think they're called. So some people get
I
those, but if you're feeding your text, you can't help. You know, they're going to see what
yeah,
they.
because I had a witness one time on the stand, and this was like years ago. And apparently, I didn't know he was looking at my screen. Apparently, he was. And during the break, he said, I said so and so, and on the screen, you had that I said this. And I'm like, why are you not paying attention to your testimony? Why are you reading my screen? And so immediately I bought a privacy screen because I was embarrassed, you know?
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But this was really great because this was great. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate, yeah.
Somebody that is with you every day, like the judge or the attorneys, like the prosecutor, the DA, after a little while and after they ask you certain questions, they're going to understand that dragon misrecognizes. And whereas a witness that's there once doesn't understand any of that. So I would be exactly where you were saying, you have no idea what's going on. Don't look at my screen.
I'm looking at my screen. But now, I mean, you're right. I get it. And so, yeah, it's always going to be a work in progress, but it can do what it needs to do if you just be patient with it.
That's true. That's true. So I will work on this some more, but for now, I will let you go because I've taken up enough of your day.
Thank you.
But I appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to more classes with you.
Sounds great. Okay. Have a good Saturday.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.